if you were a great saint or something in your past life, then it might be supportive and encouraged to know it. But most people, so we have enough struggling with our own weaknesses and problems and so forth in this life. And knowing everything that happened last life might hold you back and drag you down. So it's better off not knowing. And also on this topic, it is actually quite common for children to remember their past lives up to a certain age. And there was a doctor, I think it was Ian Stevenson. He's an American, he's dead now, but his student is carrying on his research. So he researched over 2,000 cases of past life memories in children. And, parents who found out that he was doing that research, and he had, kind of agents there advertising that this was happening and inviting families whose children were saying strange things about past lives to contact them. And what he would do was interview the child and then see if some of the things that they were talking about could actually be established. So he would look into the history and so forth. And for example, one case that I remember was of a girl who, when she drove past a particular neighborhood, she would say to her father, "That's where I used to live." And so they reported the case. And he found the family, the house, the family, and the mother of the family had died of an accident, a fall. And usually he didn't let them get in touch with each other, but this family somehow found out about her and took their own initiative and went to see her. And they had decided that they would find out for themselves whether she was really their mother. And so they had pretended to be people that they weren't. So the ones that were her children said that they were, and the ones that weren't her children said that were her children said that they weren't. But she got the correct ones despite that. And they eventually also, because her family was poor, they ended up paying for her university education. So like this 2,000 cases he researched. And Baba talks about this too. He says that it is quite common for children to remember their past lives and say things like, "You're not my mother," or "I had another mother," or "My hair was this color," or something like that. But usually that stops after a certain age, because more and more experiences are just coming in on top, as I was explaining, and those past life memories just get lost. However, in some cases, children do remember their past lives for longer, and then they start to have difficulties because they don't know, am I this person or that person? Is this my family or that not my family? And often children who have those kinds of memories into adulthood die young. So that's what Baba says on that particular question.
What's the name again?
Ian Stevenson, let me check. I've got it written here. Yes, Ian Stevenson, Dr. Ian Stevenson, University of Virginia Medical School. And Jim Tucker is his student who's still alive and doing on the research. So the things that was often found children might be saying, "You're not my mother or father." When I was big, I used to have blue eyes. That happened before I was in mommy's tummy. I have a wife, husband, children. I used to live in another town. I died in a car accident, and so forth. He also found that there were often birthmarks or some type of birth defects, or if the person had, had some kind of accident in their past life. Do you think that the belief in reincarnation is most people in the world believe in it, or most people don't believe in it, or any thoughts about any feeling sense about whether it's kind of a common or an uncommon belief? Very true, very true. But overall, yeah, well, I've got the statistic here. More than 60% of people in the world do believe in reincarnation. So that's the questions. I'll look at, in this talk, how it happens, what does it mean to our life, can we change our sanskara, our karma, is there an end to this process? Means, do you just keep reincarnating forever? Where is it leading? Okay. And I'll also look at the role of spiritual practice in this process. There was Ian Stevenson did research on people who reported children talking about their past lives. There was an Australian psychotherapist called Peter Ramster who was doing hypnotic regressions, and he came up with some interesting things too. One, for example, was a woman called Cynthia Henderson, who claimed she was executed by the guillotine in France in the 18th century. When she was under hypnosis, she could speak 18th century French without an accent perfectly. So, and in normal state, she didn't know a word of French. So, an interesting fact. Then there was a man called William Barnes, who at the age of 4 used to be very fond of drawing a picture of a ship with 4 smokestacks. And used to tell his parents, that was my ship, but she died. And also that he wanted his mother to call him Tommy, not the name that he was given. And he spoke about 2 brothers, a sister, aunts, and uncles who his parents didn't know about. And he used to have nightmares about this ship. And he had to, when he was 25, he had to see a counselor who used hypnosis to take him back. And in the middle of this hypnosis, he heard himself arguing about the ship's design. And suddenly he came out of the trance at that moment and he sat up. My name is Tommy Andrews. Do you know who that was? He was the designer of the Titanic. Interesting story. Baba tells very many interesting reincarnation stories that I can share one of them. There was a Dada, he's dead now, his name was Dada Krsnasevananda, a very, very saintly man, and totally calm. Nobody ever saw him get angry once. It was amazing. And one time somebody came and asked Baba, so it was actually in a group, so we feel that he's a bit unusual, he's always calm, he never gets angry. And so Baba did a little experiment, and he asked one Dada to sit in meditation and to look into the past life of this Dada Krsnasevananda. And then Baba asked him, "What do you see?" And he said, "I see lots of tigers." And described them. And he said, "Well, what are," I can't remember exactly how it goes, but their mental color is red, except for one of them whose mental color is white. And then Baba said that that particular tiger was this Dada in his past life, immediate past life. And he said that in a life before that, he had been a spiritual teacher, but he had an issue with anger. And in a fit of anger, he had beaten one of his disciples, and the disciple died. And because of that, he reincarnated as this animal in his next life. And during that life, he burned through the sanskaras that he had acquired for that, and also he burned through his anger. And that was why he was so calm in this present life. That's one story, and there's other ones, and they were interesting because they happened live in front of us. So, Baba would do these experiments and get someone else to sit down and look back at someone's past life. I remember another one. There was some person who was, he was very badly behaved and not what we would expect from a good Margi behavior. And how did it go? Anyway, maybe I'll tell it at some other time. Okay. So that was that first question. Is it valuable to remember? We have plenty of difficulties in this life, and our last life was probably full of difficulties as well. So one life of difficulties is quite enough, rather than having to deal with two. So how does reincarnation take place? So I already expressed that, there's a basic law of action and reaction. So whenever there's an action, there has to be some kind of reaction. And if you imagine the mind as kind of a nice smooth surface ball, and when I make an action, I make an impression on that ball. And when the reaction to that action comes, the ball returns to its normal state. Okay? So then the mind, which wants to return to its state of balance, feels relief when the reaction comes. Okay? So I come down the stairs, I say to you very sweetly, "Good morning," and you turn your back on me and don't reply and ignore me and go off. No, this isn't actually happening. I'm just giving an example. Yes. So I feel upset about it all day. And the next day I'm still bothered by it. And next week, but not quite so much, and so forth. And eventually I forget about it. But that unsatisfied state of the mind is still there. It's just that other things are coming in on top of it, and it's going further down. So eventually it sinks down into what we call the unconscious mind, or the atimanas kosha. You learned about it, the first level of the unconscious mind. And there it is stored. And it will stay there until death. And then at the time of death, what remains is the unconscious mind, because death brings an end to the conscious and the subconscious. So the subconscious is your personal experiences and memories. So all that remains is the unconscious mind and the sanskaras, or unfinished business that is stored there. Okay? So at the time that you are reborn, there you are with a fresh conscious mind and a fresh subconscious mind, no memories or experiences. So all you carry with you is your memories from the past life, right? And they're very fresh. And you will see little kids on their back, kind of laughing or crying for no apparent reason, right? Perhaps they are, reliving or going through some of the experiences of their past lives. So normally, it is death and the removal of the conscious and the subconscious mind, and the rebirthing of the unconscious mind in a new body that allows those sanskaras to come to the surface, and they are played out in your next life. And nature, prakriti, somehow matches the circumstances of your, the circumstances that you are born into with your existing or remaining sanskaras. So you have a certain psychology, you have to go through certain experiences, and a certain matching situation will be found that is more or less suitable for you to play out the rest of those unfinished business, right? For you to basically carry on from where you left off. So that's what determines our rebirth. Now we may have certain cultural, linguistic, we may have relations to particular people that we have to, that those things are not finished yet. So maybe we will be reborn in circumstances that are, bring us in contact with those people so we can finish that. And I remember one story that Baba told about a man that came to see him, and he just could not understand why he had such a bad relationship with his son. And he said it was just no way he could explain it. He was trying his best to behave well and things like that, and to treat him properly and things like that. But his son was just, had this unexplainable negative attitude towards his dad. And then his father took him back into his past life and showed him an experience where he had done something that destroyed the trust of his, they had some previous relationship in a past life. And it was because of that the relationship was like that. And then there was another instance where a Dada asked, Baba asked a particular Dada, "Did your mother say anything about the time that you were reborn?" And he said, "Yes. She said that at the time of my birth, she had this image of a coconut coming to her." And then Baba told the story of this person's past lives, that he had been a young orphan who was adopted in an ashram by a master, and that master had brought him up. So he'd been abandoned by his parents, or his parents couldn't look after him or something. And he was a very good boy and a good student, and had done very well. And the master was kind of training him as his disciple to take over in his place. And at one point, the master had to leave the ashram for some period of time. And he told the boy that on no circumstances should he accept any gift from anyone. And with those instructions, he left. And sometime later, a woman came to the ashram who was one of his other disciples, and she was very wealthy. And she had brought with her from her village, and she was also, I think she was some kind of princess or something like that. So she was accustomed to power and being obeyed. And she came to see the master, and he wasn't there, and she had brought gifts. And she put tremendous amount of pressure on the boy to accept, and he was resisting and resisting and resisting. But she was a princess and very strong. And eventually she persuaded him to accept something. And what she had brought things, and what he took was a coconut. And at the moment that she passed the coconut to him, their hands touched. And she was very impressed by the boy. And a thought came in her mind that, I wish he was my son. When the master came back, the boy was sick with stomach problems. And he asked him, did you accept any gift from anyone? And he said no. He asked him again, did you accept any gift from anyone? He said no. He asked him again, and the third time he finally admitted what he was done. So that was a past age where, telling the truth and following the Guru's instructions and that kind of thing were given a lot of importance. So when he found out that he had been disobeyed, he had trusted, he had disobeyed, and he had lied about it, the master expelled him. And he left the ashram, and he died soon afterwards. And he was reborn as a coconut tree. And then in his next life, he was born as the son of that woman who had also reincarnated, and who, when their hands touched, had that wish for him to be her son. So, pretty amazing story of how we, who knows all the web of sanskaras and karma that have caused us to be here and caused us to be in different types of relationships with different types of people. The reasons behind it are invisible. And sometimes, people may explain towards you in kind of unexplainable ways. May behave towards you in unexplainable ways. But there is some explanation. It's just that we don't know what it is. We can't see it. We can't see the web of sanskaras. So, normally we have this, if you can imagine, after lifetimes and so many lifetimes, we are storing up these sanskaras, and life by life we live out the ones from the previous life. But the goal of yoga practice is to, first of all, is clarity of mind, and eventually freedom. Right? Freedom from being born again and again and again, freedom from the bondages of time, place, and freedom, time, place, and person, and oneness, overcoming this being locked in one body and one situation and being subject to all the bondages of life in this world. We sense within us the potentiality of absolute consciousness. Our spirit is divine, infinite, and eternal, but we are caught in this very limited body and mind. So liberation, mukti, moksha, self-realization, realizing and experiencing ourselves as the infinite and the divine is the goal of yoga practice. What is holding us back and what makes us different from each other? Spirit is the same. We are all that same basic spirit. What is it that makes you different from somebody else? It is whatever is stored in your unconscious mind. Right? So that collection of sanskaras, of distortions that cause you to behave in certain ways. They may be cultural imprints, educational imprints, family imprints, people imprints, the imprints of your past actions. So there are different types of sanskaras. There are the sanskaras that are, from your own actions. There are the sanskaras from the place that you were born, the culture that you grew up in. Maybe you were a soldier and you had to shoot people. Different types of workplace sanskaras. So we call these the ones that you have done yourself from your own actions. They are called inborn sanskaras, and all the other types of sanskaras are imposed sanskaras. They come from your cultural environment or your workplace environment.
What's called the first one?
Inborn sanskaras, and the second one is imposed sanskaras.
How do you spell inborn?
Inborn, so born into you. They come with you at the time of your birth. Okay. So it means they are from your own actions. And then there is newly created sanskaras, so the actions that you do in this life. So normally, imposed, so they come from the outside. So as they sink deeper and deeper down, they cannot be expressed until they are uncovered. And that normally doesn't happen until the time of death. But there are two exceptions. Suppose you're in a car accident and you go into a coma. Sometimes people come out of that state of coma, and because it was kind of like a death-like state, their sanskaras come to the surface, right? Because their conscious mind, subconscious was suspended for a significant amount of time. And they may take a completely new direction in life. That's one occasion where it might happen. And the other occasion is through meditation. So in meditation, the mind is withdrawn, the conscious mind has become calm, the subconscious mind is also calm. And even though it may be only a short space of time, there is a gap or a stillness in the mind, in the activity. There is a temporary suspension of the conscious and the subconscious mind, which allows the contents of the unconscious to come to the surface. And as a result of this, you